Hello, everybody. I am here to share with you about chapter 5, which is consciousness. First, turn off the video panel. There we go. You don't need that. Okay, so consciousness. So I am not going to cover everything that happens in this chapter. There's a lot to know. I just picked out some highlights for you that feel especially important to me that you understand and think about. Otherwise, the lecture and every lecture, honestly, would be very, very long. And I know you don't want that. Um, there is, there are two linked videos. I have stopped trying to get them to load in the slideshow themselves. It's just, first of all, it's very technically complex, and also sometimes it just does not work once it's uploaded to YouTube. So we're just not going to do that anymore. Okay. Okay, so here are our learning objectives for today: consciousness, sleep, altered consciousness, and that is it. All right, so consciousness. So what is consciousness? It's the awareness of yourself and your environment, and it's subjective, selective, and usually divided. So what does that mean? So your experience of the environment is your own. And that's what subjective means. It means it depends on who you are, what your experience of it is. Selective means that it is you are attending to some things, but not to other things. In various proportions. So there are some things that you're going to attend to more and some things that you're going to attend to less. When we say it's usually divided, what we mean by that is that it is very rare for our attention to ever be just on one thing. There's a few examples of this. One I got in an in-person class was video games. I can certainly see that. Another example that I got is sex. Obviously you're capable of thinking about other things during these activities, but it is possible to think about only that thing, and that's pretty uncommon. So it's usually divided. Your consciousness has a stream and it has levels. If you've ever seen Inside Out, the way that that is depicted is by a train, Riley's train of consciousness. So basically when Riley is asleep, the train stops, and when she's awake, it moves along. And it does have levels. So, there's the conscious level, which is the level that we're aware of, that we're thinking about in an active way. And then there are lower levels than that, and they are kind of varying degrees of awareness on our part. So, I can think about, while I'm doing this, I can think about being hungry, but that's a conscious thought. But if I'm developing hunger in the background, right, and eventually it crosses over into my conscious level, then it was on an unconscious level for quite a while, right? And also, there's when you think about the levels, I want you to think a little bit about when sometimes you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning and you have a little bit of an epiphany about something that you were thinking about before you went to bed. Your unconscious mind was working on that while you were asleep. So that's an example. Okay, so our consciousness, oh wait, is there more to this one? No. Our consciousness may provide us with survival advantages. So here are two possibilities for that. So planning for future activities and categorizing and making sense of emotions. So what level of consciousness allows us to do these things, and can other living things do them? So Um, these are both at kind of the topmost level of consciousness, the one that you're existing in on a day-to-day basis, basically. And planning for future activities is kind of a high order ability. And I would question whether there are other living things that can do these two things. But it gets really complicated, right? So, even if it seems obvious to you that humans can do these two things, well, what about children, right? So, when they're really small, they can't do these things. Does that mean they're not conscious? So that's a question. And then what about AI, right? So AI can plan for future activities. AI can categorize and make sense of emotions, maybe not as well as a human can, but it certainly can. So does that mean that AI is conscious? I don't think so. So now we're kind of pretty deep into philosophy, but these are things to think about. Don't just assume that that there's an entire category that is or is not conscious. Okay, sleep. Let's talk about sleep for a minute. So the original altered state of consciousness, right? So minimal physical movement, minimal responsiveness to your environment. That doesn't mean that you don't respond, and it doesn't mean that you don't move, obviously. So, my daughter, very heavy sleeper, but if if I go in and I kiss her while she's asleep, she's gonna stir a little bit. So she moves a little bit and she responds a little bit, but not she's not unconscious, right? So sleep is um a level of consciousness between awake and completely unresponsive. So there are stages to sleep that I'm not really going to go into, so please see your book for those. But I'm showing you here my sleep graph from, a fairly good night actually. And this is pretty normal, kind of typical sleep graph. And you can see the levels of asleep and awake and how deep your sleep is vary, right? Throughout the night. So pretty normal here. Um, we'll mostly talk about REM sleep tonight, active sleep, sleep on neurons, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's chat about melatonin. There's lots and lots of hype about melatonin, but it really is just a hormone. The job of melatonin is to regulate sleep, and it helps with sleep onset. Um, it can help you if you have a non-traditional sleep schedule, so you're not sleeping at night, but you have to sleep during the day. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but um, and then in jet lag relief, so it can kind of help you get to sleep even when the cues from your environment tell you you shouldn't be asleep. So it can kind of help with that. Um, there are some potential side effects that include drowsiness. That made no sense to me, but by and large, it's very safe. It will not cause physical addiction or dependence in the same way that you might think that it might if you know something about dopamine and adding something that simulates dopamine can cause dependence really quickly. This is not that situation. But there are other sleep medications most sleep medications that will cause dependence. So you need to be really careful about what you pick and understand what it is that you're taking and what the side effects are and what the chances for dependency may be. So melatonin can be really helpful for a lot of people. It is a little bit on the individual side. So most folks, you want to take it about 2 hours before you want to be asleep. But there are some people who take melatonin and they're, drooling in 45 minutes. So you just have to try it and see where you end up. Okay. Why do we sleep? So there's kind of two versions of the theory behind why we sleep. And, the adaptive theory of sleep, the second one on this slide, yes, I'm sure all of that is true. That when we sleep during times when it's less efficient or it might be dangerous to be active, that's why we're diurnal, right? Like that's why we're awake during nighttime, but it doesn't really satisfy me personally as to why we sleep at all, right? So, we just as easily could have been nocturnal and been moving around at night. So that is not as safe a time to be moving around as prey. So we evolved to sleep at night and to be awake during the day. So that's one thing to think about. But I think the main point is that we need sleep for repairing our body, right? So to repair our cells and to repair our neurons, that all happens while we are asleep. It also pruning happens while we're asleep, right? If you'll recall that children are born with quite a lot of neurons, and the process of growing up is a lot around pruning the neurons that you don't need, and ending up with an adult brain later. So all of that process happens while you're asleep. Um, Sleep also reduces your metabolic rate, which basically means that you don't have to eat as much, right? So it's an energy conservation um, technique for the body, I suppose. Um, and as anybody who has not gotten enough sleep for a week or two and then got really, really sick will tell you, you need to sleep to stay healthy. If you don't sleep to stay healthy, you will get sick. You will. So, okay, common sleep disorders. So, sleepwalking, nightmares, narcolepsy, sleep paralysis. These are all discussed in your book, and I don't want to spend too much time on them. I will say that a lot of the sleep disorders are more common in children just because they do have like all those extra neurons sort of floating around, and they tend to grow out of them. Okay, so your circadian rhythm is your kind of natural body's rhythm to how alert you are versus how asleep you are, and it also regulates your temperature a little bit. So obviously, when you're asleep, your temperature goes down. So what does this mean for us? Oh, we'll get to that. So we are diurnal. What happens when you force a nocturnal schedule? So we're designed to be awake during the day. That's how we've evolved. But what happens when you are a shift worker or for some other reason you have to be up all night? What does what does that do to us? So our sleep quality, our mood, our cognition, all of this stuff decreases. I want to underline metabolic issues a little bit because it is very, very common that if you don't sleep well or sleep enough, you will develop metabolic issues and end up overweight, right? It is pretty hard to be at a healthy weight if you do not sleep enough. Your body needs that time to maintain your metabolism the way that it needs to be maintained. So um, melatonin again is back here. So you develop you produce melatonin as a result of darkness. So if you stay up and you're exposed to artificial light at night, your melatonin will be suppressed. And so it'll be harder to fall asleep during the day. And then you won't sleep very well. And then you'll be sleep deprived. And it causes all sorts of issues with your body physically. So, also, obviously, if you're not getting sunshine, you're not getting enough vitamin D. And I just want to point out that being on an opposite schedule from most of the people that you know can really cause some social issues. And also, makes it hard to go to the grocery store if you're getting up at 11 o'clock every night, right? So our world is designed for us to be sleeping during the day. Okay, jet lag tips. I just thought I'd drop these in here to help you. I will say that if I had to pick one to help you with jet lag, I would pick nap wisely. Um, it it is hard to take a long trip across time zones regardless, but the nap wisely advice will get you to the right time zone as quickly as possible. Will you still feel like the bottom of a shoe even if you manage to get on the right sleep wake cycle in one day? Yeah, you will. So like, if you cross enough time zones, and let's say, so I used to live in England and I used to come back to California. It's an 8-hour difference. Um, I got pretty good at napping wisely and making sure that I was not going to bed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and then staying up all night. But regardless of whether I managed to force myself onto the right schedule immediately or not, I absolutely felt like the bottom of a shoe for days until my body truly adapted. And I think a good rule of thumb is about an hour a day that your body can do until it's really um well adapted. Okay. Dream theories. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on the dream theory, but there are some different theories for why we dream. But basically, our brain never completely shuts off until it has died. So our brain does not have the regulatory processes in it while we're asleep that it has while we're awake, and so weird things can happen. That is the best that I can come up with. But yeah, there's all these theories and they're in your book. All right. So altered consciousness, hypnosis, meditation, drugs. All right, hypnosis. So people talk a lot about hypnosis as though it did not exist. And it does, but it doesn't exist the way that mm, it doesn't exist the way that popular media portrays it. Let's put it that way. So it is basically hyper-focused attention. And we are not used to having singular attention in that way. You'll remember that in the very beginning of this lecture, I was saying that our consciousness is usually divided. Well, this is a situation of being awake, but completely focused attention, and that is not something we see very often. So hypnosis also involves heightened suggestibility. However, I will say that it does not mean that people will just do anything, right? You can't suggest that they jump off a cliff. It's not going to happen. Um, as to who can be hypnotized and who cannot be hypnotized, it varies. But it's really not about intelligence or strength or anything like that. Um, it's mainly about suggestibility. Um, so yeah, I mean, uh, the individual differences, menu tab here, we'll talk to you a little bit about who can be hypnotized and who cannot be hypnotized. But basically, until you've tried to be hypnotized, you're not necessarily gonna know whether you can be or not. Might be a fun thing to try. All right, meditation. So I used to teach a class on stress. And in that class, one of the assignments was to write, record, and then practice your own meditation. And It was quite effective, I will say. Meditation is an evidence-based practice. You can create one for yourself if you can't find one that you like. You do not have to record your own voice. Some people find that really annoying. And you know, that being said, there are many good meditations out there in the world already, that are supported by evidence that will help you with these things. So YouTube is a big help here. And also there's apps for this. I think Headspace is a good one. So yeah. Oh, and about Headspace. So if you have Kaiser, I know for Kaiser specifically because I have Kaiser, but um, I'm sure other insurers also do this. They will pay for Headspace for you. So look into it. Okay, alcohol. All right. So I'm not going to walk you through each of these, but I will say that alcohol is very addictive, and it is consciousness altering in a way that can be very destructive. Um, and it can kill you, right? Not only can it kill you if you drink too much in any one sitting, but if you are dependent on alcohol, and you just quit, that can kill you also. So you got to be very careful with alcohol. I'm aware that I'm talking to college students, and so the one that I really do want to highlight on here is the third one. Mixing alcohol with energy drinks helps you stay in control. This is not true. Energy drinks can help mask the effects of alcohol, but the problem is that you drink more, right? You think you're fine, so you just drink more, and then you end up with alcohol poisoning. So, while I was teaching this class in person, some of the students mentioned, situations where they had friends or other people at parties that they were at where they were taking them to bed, and were worried that they were going to vomit and choke. And my advice to you, if you are worried that that might happen to somebody you are with, is not to try to arrange them in such a way so that they vomit away from their esophagus, but to take them to the hospital, right? If you're that worried that they're going to vomit while they're asleep, they should be in the hospital. All right, stimulants. So, my sister did us some videos on what's up with stimulants and ADHD and why do stimulants work for ADHD. So now is a really great time to pause the lecture and go watch those videos. Okay, hallucinogens. So in general, hallucinogens are pretty harmless. They don't really have any ill effects, or if they do, they're pretty short-lived. But if you are someone at risk for developing a psychotic disorder in general, but I put schizophrenia down here because that's what people tend to understand without too much explanation. Um, you need to probably stay away from these, right? So especially if you have ever had any psychotic symptoms yourself, you need to stay away from these. So they absolutely can trigger psychotic symptoms, and in people who are already susceptible to having a psychotic break, it's really bad news. So remember the diathesis stress model of illness, right? Vulnerability plus trigger equals disease. So this would be the trigger, right? So on the other side of that, we have inhalants. So listen, inhalants are just something you should always stay away from. They are highly addictive. They can kill you at any time, no matter how many times you have done it. They can kill you the first time. They are very damaging to your brain, to other organs in your body. Even if you don't die, they will really mess you up. So, it is very, very, very easy to become addicted to inhalants. So please just walk away from the inhalants. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. All right. So, this is the end of the lecture. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. Okay. Thanks. Bye.